All right. Hey, class. My name is Grant Simmons, and this is my assignment for the instrument approach. All right. So, before our approach, we would want to know where we are on our trip. So, we would need to know what airports we're departing from, arriving to. Um, we're in the en route phase right now, so we can expect a approach and start looking at its minimums and start briefing the plate. We'd want to know that us, the pilot, is current and rated for if it's an instrument approach or if we're flying in IFR. That our aircraft, what equipment we have on that aircraft, if we have VOR, GPS, um, all of that we can actually use for the approach. What the environment is, so we'd listen to ATIS, AWAS, any of that to get our weather at the airport we're arriving at and any external pressures. So if we're taking an approach that takes slightly longer than another, making sure we're staying on the safest path. And so the question is, what's the difference between an MDA and a DA, or MDH, DH? They're used interchangeably. So the difference is a minimum descent altitude is where you fly from your last fix inbound to your minimum descent altitude, and you stay at that MDA until you reach your missed approach point or decide to land. A decision altitude or decision height, you're flying on a vertical navigation glide slope, and you fly down to that decision altitude, and then when you see whether or not you can or cannot land on the runway, then you start your climb back out. So it is appropriate to dip slightly below a DA. It is not to go below an MDA. And when you can descend below either of them, you may not descend unless you are continually in a position to land with normal descent and maneuvers. So that means you're not going to have to drop at 1,500 feet per minute to make the runway, and you're not going to have to do a slip to drop even more altitude, anything like that. Visibility is above minimums, so you need to have the appropriate weather above the minimums selected for your specific approach. And one of these things has to be visible for you to descend below, and that's the approach lighting system, runway end identifier lights, the visual glide slope indicator, the runway, its markings and lights, the threshold, its markings and lights, or the touchdown zone and its markings or lights. And the ALS you can only use to go 100 feet above your touchdown zone elevation unless you see the red terminating bars. And so when would we use an MDA and when would we use a DA? A decision altitude would be used on precision approaches such as the ILS, PAR, GLS, and approaches with vertical guidance. So the LPV and LNAV, VNAV, while they're still non-precision approaches, they have that approved vertical guidance. And that's when you stay on a constant glide slope, and then you hit your decision altitude and decide whether or not you're landing or going missed. For non-precision approaches like VOR, NDB, LNAV, localizer, those you would fly to your MDA, and then if you reach your missed approach point by that time and you still can't see anything to descend, then you would go missed. And this is what can happen if we swap those around, where say we're on a non-precision approach and fly down to our MDA and keep descending. It's one of the easiest ways to get controlled flight into terrain, which is controlling the plane, making it do something you want it to do, and flying into terrain if you're in IFR conditions. And I really like the passage that was given to us for this one, give careful thought to your paths for your feet and be steadfast in all your ways. And to me, that says to know your plan. So, well before you reach the approach, start briefing the approach. I like to brief it multiple times, as many as I can, just to get very familiar with it and to follow your plan. So, stay on what your plan is to do for that approach. Don't try and change anything around, cut turns early, try and descend lower than you should, and follow the rules. So stay within 91, 175 to stay legal on your flight. Staying above those minimums keeps you legal and safe. It's always a good idea. All right, here are my references. Thank you.